Doug Smith again here on the Enterprise track. Welcome to the 2:30 session. And we're going to learn about the confusion, how to overcome the confusion of XR and Enterprise with our friends Sean Hurwitz, Tamarah Usher, and a special guest, Rich Boudry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a special guest, which Rich can talk more about his background, but Rich is from Chick-fil-A. Tamarah, who will also introduce herself, is from Slalom, our partners. My name's Sean Hurwitz. I'm the CEO and founder of PIXO VR. We started the company, believe it or not, in 2009. We were heavily focused on enterprise gamification, where we took mundane enterprise-type tasks and we put them in game engines, but ultimately deployed them from 2D screens, flat screens, mobile, iPads, which weren't even really out at that time. Learned quickly that it's not a very immersive experience. So fast forward a few years, 2014, 2015, the Oculus Rift comes out, changes our world, and we said, that's it. We're going heavy on enterprise VR, specifically training. But we also realized in the mobile app days and the mobile days that there was not an enterprise distribution platform, something that was compliant, something that was scalable, something that was flexible. So our clients like Ford or GM or Michigan State University, they couldn't really deploy the applications because they couldn't give their employees Apple IDs or Google Play, which came around later. So PIXO focused exclusively at that time on developing an agnostic, scalable, flexible, and XR distribution platform, meaning you can scale millions of users, 100 users. But what we also realized more recently is hardware, and Jason's not here, but Jason McQuiggan from Lenovo says, you know what, the hardware is pretty much all the same shit. And the content from an application standpoint is commoditizing really quick. So our platform, which we have a patent on, really sets us apart. But more importantly, and Tamarah and Rich will go further into this, is every enterprise is different. They want the same ROI. We want to train better. We want to train faster. We want to improve workflow and accuracy, but each company is different. So we partnered with Tamarah and Slalom to be that consultant, to form that partnership to help those companies figure out where's the efficacy and where is the value. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go.
No. Hey, Tamarah Usher, it's so great to be here. And Sean, loving the announcement around the partnership. Slalom and PIXO have such a awesome connection on, setting both the strategy for XR, AR, VR, and getting the value in your organization, but then actually being able to execute on that in a way that's scalable, that is, allowing you to realize the vision of your long-term roadmap. And it's such a great partnership in the sense of our companies are also really well aligned in terms of our culture, our outlook on the future in this space. And so it's super exciting to be here and to talk to you and our client about that as well.
Yeah, so my name is Rich Boudry. I guess I am a special guest today.
You are.
Being a last
For all 12
edition.
of you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, I work for Chick-fil-A. I've been at Chick-fil-A about 4 years now. I've been in the L&D space. That's where I serve at Chick-fil-A. But I've been in the L&D space for about 20 years. 10 of those years were as a teacher. Taught in public schools for 5th grade for 10 years, and then I switched over 2013 to corporate L&D. Most of that, my tenure is really around this learning innovation and seeing, really feeling the fog of innovation for the past 20 years. Things have been moving so quickly. And in those 20 years, I've seen lots of fogs, various amounts of fogs, where sometimes you can see through it, sometimes you can't. But right now is one of those times where it's really hard to see through the fog of innovation. And it's really these partnerships that are really helping us get better clarity and have better vision of what's out there. So I am super thankful to be partnered with both of you. And I'm thankful that you guys get a chance to partner with folks like PIXO to just help provide some of that vision and clarity around what's coming, what's out there, what's on the horizon. So.
Yeah, which is getting harder and harder to determine. Let's go back 5 or 6 years when we went to VR, AR conferences, and I used to say it was like the band playing for the band. It would be VR developers and talking to VR developers. And so, we were all just struggling with the same issues, but there weren't really many enterprise clients to say, here's how we're doing it, and here's how we're solving that problem, which is so amazing that Rich has been such a great client and willing to share. And if are there any enterprise, companies out there? Couple? All right, good. Well, there were none back in the day. So I think it's becoming more and more confusing, actually. I mean, there's a great buzz. There's more hardware, there's more investment, there's more software. But if you're a client, and maybe Rich, you can speak to this, is if you walk through that expo hall, how do you know? If you're, with all due respect, unsophisticated buyers that have to determine what's the difference between this headset or this platform and that platform, I imagine it's pretty overwhelming. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, it really is. Coming from the L&D space, some of the big L&D conferences, I'm very well versed in all that stuff because I've been going for years and I see kind of the same old stuff. But coming here, it is very overwhelming. It's a new world for me. And my colleague Mark, who's not with me today, but both of us, we go to these conferences, especially these new VR ones, and it's very overwhelming. But having folks on like you all, and others, just to help us see and it just makes it easy. Like one of the questions I asked somebody I talked to today at lunch, I was like, just listen, point me in the right direction. What should I focus on and what should I stay away from? What's a trendy thing, but help me see the trends. And that's something that we try to do in our space at Chick-fil-A is really look for the trends amongst the trendy. But again, the partnerships help get us there, help us see through all that.
I mean, and since, we're really looking at the landscape constantly, we're looking at, all the different partners out there and the platforms, the hardware, and all of the different, our other clients, all of our clients that are approaching this in different ways. Like, I think the first step into this journey can be really varied. I love the L&D and the training space. I think it's such a great way to differentiate yourself, to do, get talent, that you're bringing into the door, keep them there, get them excited about the innovation that you're providing to them as employees, as team members, but then also, really being able to get all those benefits from this immersive learning. And, it's a great first step in an XR journey. And you really do want to find that right platform that can meet your needs for that first step, but that also is going to grow with you and scale with you and allow you to really just bring this as a capability into your organization and really do something big with it.
And how do you do that? I mean, that's what we're struggling. Like, how do you? There's the headsets, there's platforms, there's oh my gosh, we seem to be a solution looking for a problem sometimes. So how do you figure all that out? And I think something very important. I think you and I talked about yesterday a little bit was teams having that what we call foresight.
Strategic foresight.
Strategic foresight.
Mm-hmm.
I was calling it proactive foresight, but this ability to play in this space, because sometimes you don't have a problem for the solution in this new space because things are accelerating so quickly in this age of accelerations, according to Thomas Friedman. We have to, in the enterprise space, we have to move fast, move cautiously, move fast, and there's this constant tension between those two things. How do we do that? And anyway, it's great to have you guys speaking into some of that work for us and letting us play in that space and confidently be proactive foresight folks.
So let's sort of separate that. I mean, I mentioned the expo and we talked about hardware and software and platforms and how do I integrate it and who trains who and, is it blended learning? Is it separate? What is the right approach? But there's also then the problem that you're solving, to Rich's point, efficacy and value and ROI. It's something that we've talked about for 8 years. We sometimes meet with prospects. We spend hours with them, and if we can't find the problem that they're trying to fix because they're maybe closed off or unwilling to talk about that, we know that's not going anywhere because, it's not all nails and we got a hammer. So it's very, very important for the entire industry, one, to collaborate with each other, and two, to find value and efficacy and ROI. And this is where our partnership with Slalom and then with the help, leaning into Chick-fil-A as well. So Tamarah, maybe you can talk about that a little bit and even maybe the most recent clients.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, when you come in with this, emerging technology that is very foresightful and then, you're going to ask for funding, right? Like I wanted bring this in, we want to do a proof of concept, you know, and there's a lot that we don't know. This is where, you know, we really want to come in and help and bring that kind of, you know, innovation rigor to say like, okay, there's some things we don't know about this, but we can actually break those down and test them really effectively and bring back data that's the insight to why this is working and why we should invest further, and then identifying that like KPI that you want to lift, right? Like talent acquisition and retention is tough, or you know, quality on the job is super important because you want to, you know, spend more time serving your customers and not worrying about all of that. So there's these KPIs that you want to lift, and through these pilots, you really do want to understand and improve that out as quickly as possible so you can continue to scale it and get that additional funding. And that's very much what we did when we found each other with Cal Water. So this is a really exciting partnership with Slalom and PIXO as well, which is, you know, there's a lot to do in the water utility industries. Is such a, you know, an asset that we all are obviously really want to make sure that we can get in the hands of everyone and have good quality water and clean environment and all of that good stuff. So bringing this capability there is important, and doing so in a way that is showing value, but also signaling to the industry. And so, you know, this is one of the things that we saw when we got with you, is to, you've already been doing this in gas, in natural gas. So let's bring this to the water utilities. Let's bring this to in a way that allows us to partner and create some of that content and asset that comes and is available for other utilities throughout the country.
Yeah, you mentioned that upfront investment, or, you know, most companies, very few that we've dealt with in the last 8 years, just start out. I mean, Rich, maybe you can talk to this a little bit too. You know, a proof of concept actually requires money. You actually should be paid for that proof of concept or that pilot program. You know, there's a lot for us at PIXO. It's not the content, it's not the hardware, it's the investment that goes in with the client. You know, I like to describe it sometimes like we're putting clients in the horse gate ready for like the Kentucky Derby. And you put them in the gate, if you can get them there and make the investment, and now you're riding with them around that track. And that's where I think the industry is at a whole. You have horses all over that track, but it's important for that upfront investment, or you're not getting in the gate. You know, for us as a company, we can't afford just to do 100 proof of concepts and give our stuff away, especially on the people side and the investment that we're making in customer success. So Rich, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I mean, Chick-fil-A, as everybody probably knows, is very unique in a lot of ways. You know, recently there was an article that second to McDonald's, you generate, that's right, you know, the most revenue. And for a company that has, you know, just over 2,500 locations, McDonald's has 36,000. You guys must be doing something right. So, and maybe it's part of that. Maybe it's making this investment. You know, Chick-fil-A is a group called Chick-fil-A New Ventures that sort of innovate and bring new ideas to the company. That to me is a genius. But maybe you can talk to that upfront investment. Yeah, the upfront for us, we kind of, sometimes it's better to do and then ask for forgiveness later. And that's kind of what's happened. That's not entirely true, but what my partner Mark and I did is we had a little bit of money set aside to really, we describe it as we are bootstrapping us as a startup in our L&D space. So one of the hats we get to wear is around learning innovation. And so we had a little bit of money squirreled away from our budget from the previous year. And so once we had this idea for this job simulation project in VR, we started doing some research, finding out who's going to be a good partner for us, and that's where we stumbled upon Sean, and we had some conversations with Slalom just to kind of help give us a little bit of clarity. But one of the really neat things about Chick-fil-A is they give you the freedom to kind of go do some of those things and go and invent the future and be pioneers. But they also have this great group inside called New Ventures that looks for projects that Mark and I were working on. And so it was actually this conference a year ago. Christy's here. I think it was a year ago, Christy. Wow. So a year ago, they heard about what we were doing, and they reached one of the vendors here. Somebody said, "Hey, do you know you got some Chick-fil-A dudes here talking to PIXO?" And did you get approval or after the
fact? Yeah. And so that's when New Ventures reached out to us and were like, "Hey, we would love to help and support you." So really, and they helped in so many ways. They just opened it up. But that's, I think, if you're in this space and you're looking to get started, don't worry about going big right away. Look for those partnerships externally and internally as well, because that is so important to build those relationships internally that help you get the ball across the line. Because if you don't have that support, you're going to run fast and get so far out ahead of everybody, you're going to crash. So yeah, find that support, and the funding doesn't have to be huge. Don't even. Another thing I wanted to say too, Sean, that initial funding, you don't need to. Don't be afraid to buy the stuff off the shelf either. I mean, you guys have a great catalog of content that we could have just been like, you know what, this is just tell us how to get in the game. We're just going to use off the shelf stuff. So don't be afraid to start there.
Well, you were going to pay us more money.
Yeah,
we took it.
So, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, the off-the-shelf. So for us, and I think a lot of companies now have what we call off-the-shelf content or library of content that they've already developed, and they're trying to resell that content, like a marketplace. We did, when we first started, we thought marketplace is a great idea. We have this platform you can access, you can deploy it, you can authenticate, it can scale. And to be honest, we've had a little bit of a problem with relevant off-the-shelf content. You know, even within manufacturing, let's just say, you could be manufacturing dog food or, you know, people food or, you know, auto parts or aviation, you know, plane parts. And if we took the devices, the hardware and the software, let's say lockout, tagout, or something like electrical safety, or even CPR, and we dropped the box at all 4 of those locations, they probably wouldn't do much with it. One, because the content isn't really that relevant. For the pilot, though, amazing. Yeah. I think that's a really, really good place to start. It's more affordable. You can socialize it. But like I said before, just dropping the box off there isn't going to do anything. The customer success, the partnerships, the consulting, the working with that client to find the efficacy. For us, if they're not willing to make that investment, and our starter packs that we do with the off-the-shelf content, 80 or 90% of the money goes towards staff. Because we know we're going to have to, and travel, we know we're going to have to go on site, we know we're going to have to help them find the value, because they're not going to do it on their own. And for those other VR companies, if there are any out there, you know, you have a bunch of naysayers, you have older folks leaving, they don't care, this is, you know, for the younger generation, which is exactly right. It is for the younger generation. So we can open it up to questions in a couple minutes, unless you guys have something else you'd like to cover.
Yeah, love to hear what challenges everybody else has. Yeah.
That's what I'm curious about too, like the audience, what you all are thinking.
Mm-hmm. Let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions? Come on up to the front mic here.
Or if you talk really loud, I was a teacher, you just yell it out. Or raise your hand. I'm used to calling on people 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Being the center of attention. This is good at getting it done nicely. That library of content that's on the shelf that you mentioned, is that content that you've created, or is it content that you license?
It's a great question. When we were heading for this Netflix model, we built an SDK that we were able to curate content from any source, AR or VR. So we have about 80, 85 pieces of content right now. And really only 10, maybe 12 pieces of that content are ours.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see where that goes too, right? I know that there's the industry perspective, right? When you bring like-minded customers together that are willing to like co-invest in, you know, creating content for an industry. And then you have, you know, somewhere it might be a bit more of, you know, a core competency that you're creating for your organization, obviously not shareable. Although when you talked about your job simulator, of course, I think about, you know, how many Chick-fil-A operators are we going to have in job simulator? Not sure if you've ever like played that game. I know my 10-year-old loves to play job simulator, so we should send him to Chick-fil-A and start preparing.
Should.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the type of content now, you know, with soft skills, with AI, technical training, hard skills training. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, all good. Do you have time for another one?
Sure,
Of course.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just wondering, So from the perspective of an HR leader or HR leaders that you all work with, I think some HR leaders are really forward thinking, others are a bit more stuck in their ways. And so I think a lot of what I see is pilots or proofs of concepts often happen from an innovation team. And they're exactly what you said, a solution looking for a problem. And so I'm interested to hear kind of how you all frame up for HR leaders, why they should care about this, and how you bring along some of those ones that are a bit more dated in terms of how they're thinking about technology.
Yeah, I'll absolutely address that. I mean, you got to be a constant evangelist internally. You've got to constantly be reaching out and sharing, just if it's sharing articles with your HR leaders, if it's, whenever you get an opportunity, get to the side and have conversations with them, because they need to see the importance of it and they need to feel the urgency behind it. But at the end of the day, they may be operating in a place where they're not willing to take a lot of risk. So sometimes you just got to do it. And to prove to them, to show them, like in our case, we're able to take this proof of concept thing, knowing we're not going to launch it to a big group in the field yet, but at least we can now have something tangible that we can take to our HR leaders and say, look at this, and look at the reaction that we've seen, and look at the little bit of data we've collected internally. So create a safe space first, where they don't feel like there's a lot of risk involved. And grabbing off the shelf content is a great, just buy a headset from whomever it is and throw some generic off-the-shelf content and run some small tests just to get those HR leaders to really see the power and that full immersion. And for me, it's attaching the educational aspect to it. Like you can see, there's so much neuroscience out there that shows that the benefits of repeatedly doing a process so that you can perform it better on the job. So it's easy for me to create a test and some type of assessment, have the learner go through it, and at the other end reassess them, and then show that to the HR leader. And they once they start to see the value in that, it's much easier. And the risk, like it's a low risk. It's not that big of a, it's not really as big as we think it is sometimes. So I think does that help? I mean, we could probably talk about that a lot longer.
Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to make a complaint about Chick-fil-A. I'm sorry, your restaurants are so successful.
Yeah.
Is that every time I come across a traffic jam, it's because there's lines coming out your drive-thrus. You're shutting down traffic all over the United States. It's horrible. Anyways, clean that stuff up.
I'll see what I can do.
So as somebody on the hardware side, I'm curious about your comments around all hardware being the same. And to me, that's like saying all cars are the same. So I guess you guys just go out to any lot and pick one out when you buy a new car, or do you care about the differences in the applications and what people are using them for? Because I think we're going to see a diversification in that space, and it's really important to have the right hardware for the right jobs.
What type of hardware?
Your comments on that? AR glasses, VR headsets, all that stuff, right? I don't think it's all the same.
Is it a new product? Or? Is it yours? Is it?
No. Vuzix has been around for a while.
Okay.
But I'm speaking in general about the industry.
Yeah.
The types of devices, because we're seeing all kinds of innovation, all kinds of new stuff coming out. So I think it's important, but I just wanted to know.
I don't disagree with that. I think what's on the commercial market right now for a VR specifically, a headset with the lenses, with the computing power, with this, the storage, those things are pretty similar. And really, you're right though. It's maybe a bad way of saying it. The point is, no matter what hardware they get, no matter how good the content is, my point really is they're going to need a lot more help than just that. So yes, there are some differences in hardware. I haven't tried yours. We typically leave it up to the customer to decide and say, here are your choices. And so that's sort of where I was going with that. That makes sense for you.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah. That was Jason from Lenovo. That's his problem. I got the quote from him.
I think you bring up a good point. We're all kind of on the leading edge of everything. Everybody's kind of at this one edge. Some of us a little further, some of us a little further back. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of in that ballpark. And it's just really hard to pick the right one, the right thing. So again, partnerships help us get through that.
If you have your strategy, you know your vision, what you're trying to get to, you can try to procure the assets that are going to take you the furthest on that journey. And that's where we would help to look at that landscape and say, well, here's what we're accomplishing this year, but we have actually these 5-year goals, and let's make sure we're set up with the assets that we need.
Great dialogue. Thank you, speakers.